Hello and welcome to this exclusive video tutorial series from BlenderCookie.com. My name is Jonathan Williamson, and over the next few weeks we're going to jump into a really good hard surface modeling exercise by modeling an M4 rifle. Now the reference that you can see here is just one of a few references that we're going to be working from. And if we just go ahead and jump over to my references folder here, you can see a collection of references that I've gathered that are all either licensed as Creative Commons Attribution or as public domain. And so if we take a look at some of these, we'll see some differences in a lot of them, but most of them are pretty similar. Some differences you might see, such as this piece here is different than this one. So whether it's a different make of the gun, whatever it may be, we have some differences, and so we're going to kind of just base our model primarily off of a single reference. And in this case, we're going to base it off of the original one that we looked at, this one here, although we may do a different scope. And then we're just going to go in and work through all of this detail piece by piece, first starting out by blocking it all out, then we'll add in some more detail, until we come up with our final model. So we've got a long ways to go, but let's go ahead and get started. And what I want to do in this one is simply to put together a basic model for it. So we're just going to be blocking in everything. So the first thing that I want to do, since I'm just looking at the UV image editor right now, is I want to go ahead and go into the 3D view, and we're going to load in a background image. So to do this, we just need to hit N to bring up our properties panel, and then just scroll down, and we can go ahead and hide some of these areas. We just want to go down to the background image. And then we're just going to check the background images box, click Add Image, toggle down this so we can open up one, and we'll just click Open. And then we want to go ahead and grab one of our references. And I have two in particular, this one and this one, that we'll be primarily using to block in and do a lot of the details because it gives us a good left view and a right view. Now again, remember that there's going to be some differences in the models. They're not major differences, but they're little ones here and there that we just need to be aware of when we're working on it. But for the time being, while we're blocking this out, we can mostly work with just a single reference. And so we're just going to grab this one here. And I like the scale that we've already got, so we're just going to go ahead and use that like it is. So to get started, let's go ahead and just first hit N and T to hide our properties panel and our background images. Although actually on the background image, let's go ahead and move it over a little bit. And what I'm going to do to give us a good point with which we can easily center the reference with other ones and such is to center the reference on this spot right here. So I'm just going to hold down Shift, left click and drag on the X offset until it's centered right there, and then on the Y offset right about there. And what that also does is puts my origin point approximately in the center of the model based on the mass. So then I can go ahead and hit N to hide my properties panel, and let's just hit Tab to go into edit mode. So the way that we're going to do this, first off, is since we have so many different pieces, we're going to just start blocking in all the individual ones in a very rudimentary form. So the first one we want to do is just this basic body here. And actually, no, that's not true. What we're going to do is we're going to actually hit Tab, go into edit mode. We're going to delete all of our vertices, and then we're going to hit 3 to go into side view, and we're going to hit Shift A, add mesh, and circle. On this circle, let's go ahead and do 12 vertices. So hit F6 and change this over to 12, and then hit enter. And then what I'm going to do is go back into front view, scale it down, and then move it up to fit right here. And the reason that we're doing this as a starting point, I'm also going to hit Control Space to turn off my manipulators. The reason we're doing this is since the perimeter of this is perfectly circular and it fits right here, we can use this to help judge the scale or the width of these other pieces here. And we'll be able to do that a little bit based on other references and such, but as a good starting point, anything that's perfectly circular is easy game for us to work with as a reference point. So now I'm just going to hit E to extrude, take this out like this to about right there, and we can see that it tapers down a little bit, so we'll just scale this down just slightly. And then I'm going to go ahead and Alt right click on here, Shift D to duplicate it, and then right click and scale down to be about right there. And then we'll hit E to extrude, then immediately hit X to lock it to the X axis and pull it out to about there. and then go ahead and scale it up. And something that you'll notice is that I'm creating these as separate pieces because this way, since we've got separate pieces of geometry in there, it'll give me an easy way to work on each one of them individually. I'll go ahead and extrude this over just a little bit more, and then extrude it in again. So I just hit E to extrude, and then immediately to scale down, I just hit S, and then I'll go ahead and hit E to extrude and take this back in. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the basic barrel of the rifle. So I'm going to hit Shift D, then X to move it along, and we'll just take it to right about the tip of the barrel there. And obviously, we're going to have to account for some differences due to the camera angles here, but this is something that we can work with as we go. And now I'll just scale this way down to about right there, and I'll hit E to extrude, and I'll just go ahead and take it all the way back. Then I can go ahead and do a couple things, like I can add in edge loops for these pieces here where it's extrudes in. So then I can just select these, hit E to extrude, and immediately hit right click, and I'm going to hit S to scale it, but then I'm going to Shift X to exclude the X axis and just take that down like that. Alrighty, now we're going to do the same thing here again. And even though these are little details that we really don't need to worry about just yet, what they do is help give us a good indication of what we're looking at. So already we can start to see the shape of the barrel coming together. Alright, so let's go ahead, and now that we've got a basic size of the barrel, which to use on the for the frame, which if we go ahead and look at our reference here, we can go ahead and pull up one of these. It gives a nice kind of down the barrel shot. This one here, we can see that the frame is just a little bit smaller than the rest of it, and so this will be a good starting point for which to build the frame. So hitting tab to go back into edit mode, I'm going to hit Shift A, add in a cube, and from the top view then, let's just hit S to scale it down. Actually, we'll just hit S and Y to scale it down to about right there. If we look at our reference again, we can see that this looks like it's coming in to be about there, and so that will work very nicely. And then we can go ahead and go back to front view, hit S and Z, take it down to about there, and then we'll take this part up to right about there. Okay, and now what I want to do is block in the basic forms, such as the magazine and the handle here. And so the way that I'm going to do that is by adding in an edge loop, such as by pulling this one back. So I've got one face for the handle to come down, hit E to extrude, take this out along the normal, which in case is also the x-axis in this case, since it's pointing directly that way. And then using this ridge here as a reference point, I'll then extrude it again, pull it out to there, and what this then allows me to do is extrude this straight down. For the magazine, I can then pull that one down a little further, extrude this one straight down, pull it back, go ahead and rotate it, and it creates the very basic handle shapes. And so this is allowing me to just block in all the different shapes, which with a model that is this complex, it's very, very important to do this because you've got so many things that you're working with. You really need to try and lay everything out beforehand and then just tackle them one at a time. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this for the magazine. So I'll hit Shift D, right click, and then scale it down just a bit. And then I'll hit E to extrude, take it down along the normal, and then just rotate it just a little bit and move it over. And then I can add in two edge loops by hitting Control R, scroll up on my mouse wheel, and left click, and then I'll just move them over a little bit like that. Okay, so that we can see this a little better, I'll go ahead and turn off my grid display. One of these days I'll actually remember to do that before starting the tutorial, but that's alright. Now I want to go ahead and do the stock. And on the stock, let's first extrude this piece out right here. So I'm going to hit E to extrude, take it out to right about there, and then I'll take this one up, and I'll take this one down, and then I'm going to Control R to add in another edge loop there, and we're going to slide it all the way down to right there, and then hit G, X, and pull it back. And I also need to remember to one of these days switch back my window draw method to automatic so I don't keep losing my panels there. There we are. Now I'm going to go back in and see if I can find a good point on one of these references, such as this one here, that kind of shows how this works. And what we can see is that basically this portion of the gun through here and through here is square, and then this part coming back is circular. And so what we're going to do is we're going to Alt-right click to Shift D this, or to then Shift D to duplicate this, pull it out along the x-axis, and just pull it back to right about here. And these look to be perfectly in line, even though it's not quite on the reference, and part of that is just because the angle of the reference is rotated slightly, but we're not going to worry about that. But what we are going to do is just scale it down just a little bit, and hit E to extrude, and take it in through here. And we'll just go ahead and go all the way in, and we'll probably merge that later on as we go. With that, you can see we now need to go ahead and scale these down along the y-axis until it fits right about like that. That looks pretty good. Maybe we'll take it just a little bit further. And in fact, why don't we just go ahead and hit Control-Shift-Tab, switch into Edge Snap mode, and hit S, Y, and then snap right to that edge. And that will keep things nicely aligned so that if we want to merge the meshes on, or merge the meshes later, we can do that very easily. Okay, and looking at this, I also want to go ahead and, oh, we won't worry about that just yet. Instead, let's go ahead and do the basic stock. So on the stock here, based on the other references, if we can find one here, we basically have a perfect circle here, and then a circle with the bottom pulled down. And so this first portion, we'll do E to extrude, take it back like this, and then we'll hit E to extrude, take it back all the way. We'll go ahead and extrude this in by hitting E to extrude, right click to cancel the movement, not the extrusion, and then hit S and Shift X to then just scale in a little bit like that. This way, we could very easily just pull the stock in or out. Okay, and then what we're going to do is just grab this bottom portion of the stock right here. We can switch into right view by hitting Control-3, and then we're just going to pull it down about like this. And that lines up pretty much perfectly, and we get this nice angle like this. Now what I'll do is we're going to go ahead and add in a new mesh right here, so we'll just hit Shift-A, add a cube, and then we're going to scale that down, and we want to scale it down to be just a little bit thinner than that right there. Looks about right. And then we can go and hit S and X to scale it out along the x-axis, somewhere about there. Pull this side out a little bit further, and then we'll go ahead and pull this side down, and this side up, and then we'll add in 2 edge loops, which then allows us to pull this up further. And if we go and hit Control-Shift-Tab and switch back to Vertex Snap, we can hit G and Z and snap this one here, so that lines up perfectly. And then we'll pull this one up a little further. And let's go ahead and slide this edge loop along. And we'll slide it up. Oh, not that far actually. Put it right about there. That ought to work nicely. And then we can go ahead and select this portion, and we'll Shift D to duplicate it, take it up along the x-axis, or z-axis, move it up along the x, grab this side, pull it down to right about there, select it all by hitting L with our mouse cursor hovered over it. We'll hit E to extrude, and then Z to lock it to the z-axis and pull it down like that, which then we can go ahead and select it again with L and hit S, Y to scale it out along the y-axis like that. Okay, and now what I want to do is see if we can find another angle of the stock. I want to create this area right in here. So here we go. I can see that it looks to be, well, first off, we got a nice angle of this, and we can see that it's basically just a flat mesh, then has a T on the bottom of it, which then transforms into this. So we're going to kind of redo how we did a little bit of this by selecting this here. We're going to hit S and Y and scale it down to about there. And then we'll go ahead and take this ridge here up to that line. We're going to select the bottom faces, hit E to extrude, take it down just a bit. And then we're going to hit Control-Tab to go back into face mode, and Alt-Shift-right click on this edge here, which will deselect all of the edge faces, such that now we can just hit E to extrude, right click to cancel the movement, and then hit S, Y, and just scale it out a bit like that. And then we're able to quickly go ahead, select this edge here, and we want to just move it down like this. And so now you can see exactly what that's created, which we also need to then bring all this out a little bit more. So we can bring it out a little bit there, and then we'll deselect these in here by going into wireframe mode with Z and then hitting B to box select and middle click and dragging like that. And then we'll hit, if we look at this, this looks to be lined up pretty much with the edge of this. And so we'll just hit S, Y, and snap to right there. And then we can go ahead and extrude all of this out. And we'll just extrude out to right here. And then what we want to do is I'm going to select this face. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and delete these two faces by hitting X and delete faces. Select this face and this face. And I notice that I'm doing it in face mode, so I don't select the interior edges. I'm going to hit E to extrude, right click, and then S, Y, and snap to right there. And then I can just select everything, W, and remove doubles, and then remove these interior faces right here. And so then what this allows me to do is I can go ahead, go into vertex mode, select these, although I'm only going to select the outside one, so I keep this width the same. I'm going to hit S and Y, just scale that down a little bit. And there we go. There we've created the basis of the stock. And so we're making really good progress here. Looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and work on this a little bit. What I'm going to go ahead and do is we're going to detach the handle here by just selecting it and hitting V to, that's actually not going to work very well. Let's just select this whole handle here, and we'll hit Y, which will split it apart, and then we're going to go ahead and hit S to scale it up, although we only want to scale along the S or the Y and the X axis. We'll hit Shift Z to then just scale it up like that. And let's go ahead and add in, say, 4 edge loops here, or we'll just do 3 for now, and then we'll just go ahead and slide this up to right there. We're going to take this edge back to right there, and in fact, let's just hit G and X, snap it to right there. Remember, we're still on vertex snap, and then we can just position each one of these to fit a little bit better. And what we'll do is Control E and slide this up, and then we'll add in another edge loop right there, and another edge loop in between the two, and then just pull that out to create that shape. We'll do the same thing right here, about like that, and that creates those basic shapes there. I'm going to go ahead and position my cursor right about here, and we're going to hit Shift A and add in a cylinder. On this cylinder, I'm going to hit F6. I'm going to uncheck the cap ends. I'm going to change this down to 12 vertices, and then let's just take the radius down to right about there. Okay, on the depth, then we'll hit S and Y and scale it in to be something about like that. Should be about right. And then we can go ahead and move it over to fit right there. Actually, we need to go ahead and hit S and Shift Y to scale it down a bit more. Take it down along the Z axis. Move it over, then we'll deselect this half here, slide this half over like this, and then what I'm going to do is select everything. Actually, no, I'm going to deselect everything. Hit Control Tab to go into Edge mode, Alt right click, and Alt right click to select only the exterior edges and not the interior. And this then allows me to hit E to extrude, right click, and then S and Shift Y to exclude the Y axis. And I'll just scale it out to right there such that I hit this bottom line. And then I can go ahead and just say, go back into vertex mode, and I'll grab these vertices here, hit S, X, and 0, and then just snap them up to about there. I'll grab this one, hit G and Z, snap down to there. I'll do the same thing with these ones here. Pull them in, grab this one, snap up to there, grab this one, snap down to there, and this one, and snap up to there. Then I can go ahead and fill in some of these faces right here by selecting all 4 vertices and hitting F, Okay. And then let's see. Let's go ahead and add in this, well, this top piece here. If we go in and find another reference, we can see that, find a good angle on it. Okay, here we go. So we can see that it comes in, it's thinner than the handle here, and kind of comes into the top of the ridge, then goes up, and then there's a slight ridge on it. And so what we're going to do is Control Tab, let's go ahead and grab this, and we'll hit G and Z, and let's just snap it down to right there. And then we're going to go and hit E to extrude, and take it up along the Z axis, and then let's just add in another edge loop right here, and let's add in 2 edge loops here and here, that then will allow us to scale these in. And we're going to hit S, X, or S and Y and snap them in to that vertex there. That looks pretty good. Well, if we look at this, we can see this ridge is the same as this ridge, which really, I feel like it's going to be pretty similar. Well, no, that'll actually be just about right. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is go ahead and create these insets here, which you notice on some of these they have a different, I apologize, I personally don't know a whole lot about the gun itself, so I don't know exactly what all the different pieces are, but this piece here, we're going to go ahead and use the one that we can see here and the one to see here, just to stay consistent. We've got some good angles of all of these, and so the way that we're going to do this, I'm going to hit Control Tab to go into face mode, and let's look at our reference again. So looking at this, what I want to do is I'm going to scale each one of these faces here, S, Z. I'm going to scale them up, say 1.1. Oops. Well, if we scale it up to be about right there, that'll be just about right. So that's about 1.25. So we'll hit S, Z, and 1.25 to make it a little bit wider. Then we'll do the same thing with these ones and these ones, and so that'll be S, Y, and 1.25. There we are. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select these here, these here, these here, and these here. And from the side view, I'm going to go ahead and hit E to extrude, S, Shift X to exclude the X-axis, and then I'm just going to pull these in to right about there. Whoops. That looks to be, oh, maybe that's a little bit too much. Maybe right about there. There we are. And then we'll go ahead and delete these edge faces that it's created. And one thing, a note on this is that the final model most likely will not be completely accurate to the reference, partially because we don't have enough references or blueprints to make it completely accurate, and also because, not knowing all the inner workings and every piece of the actual piece of machinery, it's very difficult to model it completely accurately. But what we will have is one that is accurate based on mostly sight alone, and that will allow us to really display kind of what we're working on and the depth of the modeling. I'm going to go ahead and add in another edge loop right here, which will then allow me to pull this out along the x-axis there. And if I go ahead and hit Control E, slide that edge loop down, and then I can snap it back to right there. I'll then be able to later down the road add in another edge loop here to reattach those. Okay, so this is looking pretty good. So what I'm going to go ahead and do now is to add in the sight mechanism. And so I'm going to hit Control Tab to go into or Tab to go into edit mode. I'm going to select this, hit Shift S and cursor to selected, which will position it right about there. And then I'll hit Shift A, add in a cube. on this cube, or actually, yeah, we'll just go ahead and scale it down. We'll take it up to right about here. We'll scale it down along the y-axis. Let's see if we can find a down the sight reference. I believe I had one that showed kind of the width of the site pretty well. And it looks like maybe I don't, but we've got this one here, which isn't too bad. And it looks to be almost the width of this top ridge here, and it has an inset groove. And so we'll go ahead and make it about just like that. Then from the front view, we'll go ahead and pull this out like this. Let's hit E to extrude, take it up to there, then take it up to there. Extrude this over. I'm just extruding this a few times. Pull this down, pull it to there. I'll take this down again. I'm going to add in another edge loop here, which then I will snap to right there. I'm going to select this bottom one, snap to there, and I'll hit E to extrude and snap it to right there, which then I will remove the faces, select everything, and W, remove doubles. And then looking at the mechanism for how it's attached, admit I'm not completely sure. We can see on this one that this interior edge here is a bit thinner, and so let's go ahead and take this ridge up here, and then what we'll do is let's add in, see it's got an outside ridge, this is top, this solid, and so let's just pull this over right, or actually we'll pull it over to right about there, add in another edge loop to there, pull this one back a little further, we'll add in another edge loop right there, and then we're going to select these areas right here, and we're going to hit E to extrude, right click, and then S and Y to pull them in along the y-axis, and we'll just pull them in right to this vertex here to keep things nice and even. And then we can go ahead and add in another loop right here, which will then allow us to then just extrude this face right like this. Select everything, W, remove doubles, and then remove that interior face right there to create that piece. And we can see that this has kind of a circle bracket on it, so let's just go ahead and put those in. And so the way I'll do this, I'm just going to Alt-right click to select this. I'm going to Shift D, move it over to right there. Then I'll go ahead and scale it up, and I'll just scale up right about there. Let's go into edge mode so that we can just snap it right to that edge. There we go. That works well. And this way, this will then just come right down. So then we'll hit E to extrude, take it over to that ridge there, and we'll Shift D, take it to that one, E to extrude, take it there. And then we can go ahead and select these vertices here, deselect those ones, select these ones. And we'll hit E to extrude, and then just take them down into the mesh. And what I'll do is let's go ahead and select this and this. We'll hit E to extrude, right click, and then S, Shift X to then just scale them in interior like that. I'm going to go ahead and hide the barrel here because I noticed something on my mesh. I'm going to Control L to select this whole thing and hit Shift H to hide everything else. I noticed that these are not attached here. We're missing a face. And so what I'm going to do is first select this, hit X, delete that face that's right there. And you'll now notice if I move this down, we've got that edge. And so what I want to do is add in 2 edge loops. Then we'll hit SX or SY, scale them into there, select everything, W, and remove doubles, which removed 3 doubles. And then we can see we have some issues here. So let's select these faces, hit X, delete the face, and remove this face and this face. And we still have an edge between these two, so we'll delete that edge and then fill these in just like that. And so now we've got a much more sound mesh in that area. What this also allows us to do then is to create the groove down it. And so I'm going to select these two edge loops. Just like this. And then we're going to, let's go ahead and scale them along the y-axis. Although we want to deselect this here and this here. So we'll hit S, Y, scale them down to about right there. And we can see the groove is only in the top section. So I'm going to add in a new edge loop right here, which will then allow me to just delete these faces. Although instead of deleting them, I'm going to hit E to extrude, take them down along the Z-axis to vertex snapping right there. And then I can just delete this edge and delete this edge. And then I'll select these two vertices, hit G, X, and snap them to right there. And then just hit W and remove doubles. And that will remove those and give me my nice mesh. And gives me the iron sights there. And so now we're making really, really good progress, and we're just about to call it quits for the day. But what I want to do, just to kind of show a little more emphasis of where we're going, is we're going to go ahead and add in this ridge that we see on the magazine. So I'm just going to select these two edges, and we're just going to hit E to extrude, take them down, hit Control-Tab to go into face mode, Alt-right-click on one of these edges, hit E to extrude, and then Alt-S to scale along the normals after canceling the movement from the extrusion. And that will give us that ridge there, which really helps to kind of separate our models. We'll do the, let's see, it's like we have a hole here, so let's go ahead and select those vertices, hit F to fill that face. And then something I want to do is just to start rounding this off is we're going to redirect some of our edge flow here because we want to round off this form right here. And so the way that we're going to do that is I'm going to hit Control-Tab to go into face mode. We're going to delete these two faces, and then we're going to add in another face or another edge right there, which if we go back to vertex mode, we want to go ahead and bring this edge down to right there. But we don't want to mess up this topology, so I'm going to hit V to split this apart, and then I'm just going to snap it down to right there. Let me then just pull those over a little bit, and we'll hit W and remove doubles. Then we want to just split this back up. So I'm going to remove these two edges, go back into face mode. Let's just select this whole thing and hit Shift H, and let's pull these areas up right here. Let's just pull them up to this point, which is also this ridge here, which that works out really nicely. And so we can just select these, fill in the faces, and then let's go ahead and just add in another edge loop right along here, which will allow us to then just fill these, fill that, and fill that. And then what this really allows us to do is select this and hit S, Y, and maybe 0.5 to scale that in and immediately round that off, thus making our model look much cleaner. We can also go ahead and do the same thing with this. Let's just smooth this out. We can pull these in to smooth those, which allow us to round these corners. And we can select these two edges. We'll hit S, Y, and 0.5 on that as well. Actually, that's not as rounded, so let's go ahead and undo that and maybe do 0.75. We'll round that off nicely. And then finally, let's go ahead and do the same thing along this edge. So I'll bring this out to the grip edge here, smooth that back up, smooth this one up here, and then we can select all but these ridges. And we will scale it down to 0.75 as well. And maybe here in this part, let's go ahead and maybe move that over a little bit and then deselect this and move it down. There we go. So that's starting to come together really nicely. We're going to go ahead and call it quits for the time being. We're making really good progress, but we've got a long ways to go. This is going to be quite the process to get through this entire model, as we've got so much detail to work with. But for the first day, I think we've got a pretty good start, and so I'll see you on the next section.